and welcome to our June episode of Miracle Conversations. I'm here with Dr. Dave Asomaning, and I'm hosting this conversation. My name is Brittany, and I'm an entrepreneur living in Barcelona, originally from California. And in these conversations, we get together once a month, and this year we are talking about the theme of forgiveness. This year, we talk about the theme of forgiveness, and we pull lessons from A Course in Miracles and see what we can learn about forgiveness from A Course in Miracles or any other inspirational text that we pull from, or even current events. So, Dave, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you so much, Brittany, for your intro there to this specific show today. And thank you also for hosting today and for the whole series of shows we've been doing. It's a lot of fun to work with you on this project, and I really appreciate everything that you bring to it. So a million thanks for who you are and what you bring to it. So I'm an executive coach, and I live in Florida, and I specialize in supporting CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs, and other leaders to develop miracle mindsets. And our whole show is dedicated to reinforcing and supporting and nurturing miracle mindsets in ourselves and in our audience members. And miracle mindsets then lead to improved effectiveness, ease, and fulfillment in the professional and personal lives of the leaders I work with, and hopefully in those who listen to us as well. Back over to you, Brittany, to launch us into today's lesson.
All right. I am so excited to introduce this lesson, and I will tell you why after I read it to you. So today is lesson 137, and the lesson says, "When I am healed, I am not healed alone." I'm going to read that one more time. When I am healed, I am not healed alone. And so I am excited for this lesson because I know that Dave has studied A Course in Miracles for many, many years. And when I read this lesson, I feel like I don't understand it. Sometimes the lessons that we read are quite self-explanatory, but I'm really excited for what's in this lesson to be revealed to me, because when I read it, I don't know exactly what it's talking about. And so I'm curious to talk about this with Dave, because if I were reading this by myself, I would be like, where are they going with this? What's going to be the point? But now I have someone here who studied this, and I'm so lucky to hear it from you. So why don't you tell us what claim are they making here?
Well, thank you, Brittany. That's a great way to set this up. I'll say right off the bat that even though I've studied the course since about 1995,
Wow.
I often come to some of these lessons with the same feeling. I'm like, okay, what's going on here, and what's the point? And as I've mentioned on other calls, I've led a study group with a group of about 10 people in it. It's had many different configurations, but I've led this group since 2010. So as of this recording, we're in our 11th year. And I will frequently come to that call saying, I don't get what it's saying here. Can anybody on the call help to illuminate this? So I'm glad you and I have the same vibe here, where back and forth we'll be able to illuminate things with and for each other, right? So let's give it a shot and see what we come up with together as we go through this. So let's see. So the lesson says, when I am healed, I am not healed alone, right? And then just reading the initial couple of paragraphs to orient us, it says, today's idea remains the central thought on which salvation rests. For healing is the opposite of all the world's ideas, which dwell on sickness and on separate states. Sickness is a retreat from others and a shutting off of joining. It becomes a door that closes on a separate self and keeps it isolated and alone. Sickness is isolation. So again, the Course is always very meticulous in making what very often seem like legal arguments. It'll set the foundation, then it'll elaborate from there in an almost legal way. So at the root, the basic idea here is that sickness, any type of sickness, is a form of isolation or separating. Now, separating from what? You know, just in everyday words, what the lesson is getting at and what the whole course is getting at is that we get sick because we separate from source. That's the primary cause of any kind of malaise, is separating from source. That causes us to be out of touch with our true selves, which are indestructible. Everybody's true self, original self, is indestructible. It's perfect. It can't get sick. It's eternal. It continues to live. And as I'm always saying, even though we're sort of struggling in this illusory world in which we can experience scarcity and pain and suffering and sickness and death and heartache, and this is like an illusion, and the whole illusion that we're in is because we've separated from source. So you can begin to see where the course is laying this almost legal foundation of saying sickness is caused by separation first from God, and then separation from our true selves, and then separation from other people and the connection to other people. So essentially what that all means then is that to reverse sickness, we have to reconnect to all these things we're separated from, which is again why the statement that when I am healed, I am not healed alone. In other words, it's logically impossible, if a state of healing means being plugged into divine source, our true selves, and connected on some fundamental level with all other beings, then logically, if that's what healing is connection, then to be healed, if we're sick, it means it's impossible to be healed on your own in isolation. You have to be reconnected to everything. So let me pause here and see if we're opening something up which sounds like it's moving us in the direction of a little bit more clarity. If you have comments or questions or anything you want to add from your own perspective about what we might be talking about here.
Yeah, I like the spiritual concept that we as consciousness are one. And it reminds me of this quote by Plato, who says, "The part cannot be well unless the whole is well." I think that's how it goes. It was written on a wall in a smoothie shop once, and I saw it and I thought it was nice. The part cannot be well unless the whole is well. So I think that makes sense in terms of this, because we are part of this collective consciousness, which includes source, which includes all of us. And sometimes when we isolate ourselves from that, that is what makes us kind of fall into these illusions, the sicknesses, these grievances. And if we reconnect to that source, which is what everyone is connected to, then we can be well again. So yeah, I can see that. I see it.
Great. So that's in essence what this is talking about, right? And it's then making the case that this is very different from how the world thinks, right? And that the world typically, so as an example, the world typically thinks that the world systems, if I have $100 and I give somebody 50 of those dollars, I am $50 poorer because I gave $50 away, right? That's in the system of the illusion, the ego, scarcity, lack of forgiveness, lack of healing, all these deficit based approaches to the way the world is structured, the world of illusion, the matrix. That's what happens in the illusion. If I give somebody something, I have less of it. The Course is constantly teaching the opposite of that in the place where we truly exist, where we have true power, everything we give increases for us. In other words, it multiplies. So if we give somebody something, we have more of it. If we share good ideas with people, we have more of what the good ideas are about. If we share love and kindness and compassion, the person giving it gets more of it. Right? So what it's doing then is it's on its way in this lesson to saying, if I want to be healthy, I should then give that or impart that to as many people as possible, ideally everybody, and see everybody in a whole state, because that's the quickest way to get whole myself, because I'm giving something to other people, and the primary beneficiary of that giving is going to be me. So this is the other principle. Now, the only other thing I'll hasten to add here is that sickness is like unforgiveness, healing is like forgiveness, right? These concepts are interchangeable, which is why this lesson applies to our theme on forgiveness, because you can replace in the heading where it says, when I am healed, I am not healed alone. So when I forgive, I am not forgiven alone, right? When I undo sickness, I am not undoing sickness alone. I'm undoing it for myself, but the real benefit comes in sharing it or imparting it with others, because that comes back to me multiplied many times over. I think this is also behind the concept of, it gets misused and it gets exploited in different ways, but the concept of tithing in church, right? If you give your resources to helping other people awaken spiritually, it's all coming back to you multiplied. Now, I believe that that's true based on this abundance principle in the Course, but it's frequently used to again, I'm not knocking anybody, and I don't mean to go off on a rant or a tangent here, but it's frequently used to say, give us your money, and you'll be blessed. And that's the idea. The concept is bigger than that, I think. So over to you. Any reactions to any of that? And then there are a few other thoughts to tie in, and I think we'll have it.
Yeah. I always find peace with these things, including tithing, because Source hasn't called me to control what someone does with what I give them. Source hasn't called me to vet whether or not someone is worthy of what I'm giving them. Source never said that. So, but I was called to be generous. That's the only thing I was told. So everything else isn't my responsibility. When you give a homeless person money, it's not your job to find out if they're going to go and buy something you wouldn't like them to buy with that money. Sometimes people, have questions about generosity because of this, but I just know I was called to be generous. I was called to let things flow through me, and I can't be bothered to vet all of these things. Of course, if something's in your face, or if there's a way of finding information and it's obvious, then of course do due diligence. But if the intention is to be doing a good thing, then I think that comes back to you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, absolutely correct. I mean, the typical examples are if congregation members are struggling to pay their bills and they can't keep their lights on and they can't pay their rent, and then their pastor is flying around in a $60 million jet. That is the result of, things can be a little upside down. And even there, our goal is not to judge and not to get hostile and resentful, but to bring it to forgiveness, right? It's the same thing. It's like forgiveness is the easiest way out of any nightmare. And then getting back to our topic about why when we are healed, we are not healed alone. It has to do with this idea of generosity that you're pointing to, which is that, in order for me to escape from my nightmare, my motivation has to be that I want to escape and I'm helping other people escape, whether it's financial scarcity as part of their nightmare, or financial sickness, or emotional pain, or relational dysfunction. Whatever it is that I want to see increase in my life, on a mental level, I want everyone else to experience that. And that's the quickest way for me to experience it. That's why that theme is, you can't do it on your own. It doesn't work that way. Everybody has to be uplifted, for any one person to be uplifted. And for a miracle worker, this is really important. The route is to be as concerned for other people's well-being as our own in every way, shape, or form. I think this is the fundamental idea here about how forgiveness works and how healing, therefore, also works. And then there's one more thing I'll introduce. You may have heard of something referred to as the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect. So the butterfly effect basically says that if a butterfly flaps its wings, is that what butterflies do? Do they flap their wings, or is that pelicans and other birds? If a butterfly waves its wings in the Amazon forest, this can have a huge impact on the weather in Sweden or Norway or some other far north climate, right? So it's like this idea that very small local effects somewhere have enormous distributed effects in other places, right? The butterfly effect. Now, it's a bit of a more like a parable in some cases, because people who are very meticulous about these things will say that's on a quantum physics level, it's not really true. There's this exception to it and that exception to it. Again, I'm not, in a lot of the things that we do, I'm not trying to be overly technical. It's not my area. I'm just using it as a concept to say that in general terms, I think it seems plausible to understand that there's a level of reality. Jung referred to it as the psychoid level of reality. You can think of it as the Holy Spirit. You can think of it as the quantum field, and that it's like email. There can be instantaneous communication between different parts of this underlying field. And that's why you can have, for instance, synchronicities, right? Where you think about somebody and you're hiking in the Himalayas and you haven't seen or thought about this person for 30 years, and you just start thinking about them, and then 5 minutes later you turn a corner and there they are, right? It's sort of, there's an interconnectedness between things at a more fundamental level of reality. So if a butterfly flaps its wings in the Amazon, it can affect things in Sweden or Norway. This is the concept. So when we aim for healing and release toxicity and release negative vibrations, all the things we've been saying relate to forgiveness, and we then do it to include other people, and we say we want the whole world, or as we were doing in our last show, we're aiming the love rays at Bill Gates and Melinda Gates as they go through their uncoupling, or Kanye and Kim, or whoever. I mean, whatever the headlines are, as we apply forgiveness principles to the things we see in the illusions in our local area, it affects the whole cosmos, right? Through understandings of the butterfly effect. So in that way, also, when we are improving or when we are healed or when we forgive, we're not doing it alone. It affects everything. Now, the other side is true too, that when we do negative things, it's not just us who's affected. The whole cosmos is affected, so interesting. I mean, these are all different nuances. Everything we've talked about today, they're all slightly different nuances around how we can continue to think about the phrase, the lead phrase for today's lesson. When I am healed, I am not healed alone, right? That's what it's saying. And so sort of my final question for you about this today is whether we have opened this up a little bit more, given where we started. You were like, oh, Dave, I'm looking forward to what you might have to say about this, because it's a bit murky to me. When I look at it, I don't see where it's going or what it's saying. Any thoughts about whether we've made any kind of a dent in this today?
Absolutely. I think that it makes sense, given that we are all one, we're all connected, and healing involves a union with source. And so that makes sense that it's kind of like how I was talking about in our last show about I wasn't able to achieve a true and finite state of forgiveness towards a person I was having grievances with without the help of source. So again, when you're healed, you're not healed alone. You need this help from source in order to achieve true healing, and it kind of also just takes the pressure off of you. It's not something you do alone. You have the support of the creator of the universe, and that's a very comforting thought. Another thing that I thought of when you were just talking about this last segment was I had a professor in college, and he was a life-changing individual, definitely a wise sage, and he was really into giving, the college students stress relief and no exams in his class. It was just, speak from the heart. Everything was very present and very new age, I guess you could say. And he kind of instilled in me I didn't believe this before his class, but he used to say things like, if you want to change the world, then just be a light, and just do what you love. Just make yourself happy. And I thought, well, that's selfish because I'm not going to change the world by going on a hike. I'm not going to change the world by going to the beach every day. That's just what I want to do. That's a waste of my time. I'm not doing enough for the world. But now I believe him. I know it sounds, it's questionable, but if you want to heal the world and if you want to be a force of good in the world, taking care of your aura, your space, and emitting goodness from that point, and whatever you have to do in order to do that, that is powerful for the world. That is as good as it gets. You can feed Africa and donate millions of dollars and everything. But I think one of the most important things everyone can do is just to make sure that they're good and emitting love. And if everyone could do that, obviously, then that would heal the world.
Yeah, I think what you're raising there is really, really, really super important, right? Because we hear it in a number of different ways in the culture these days, where it's, we'll say, we'll be told, in order to help, if you're on a plane that's going down or is experiencing an emergency, put the mask on your face first before you try to help those around you, right? So that's in a crisis situation. But I think in terms of our lives as well, one of the greatest gifts we can give to the world is making our lives work in every way, shape, and form, in every direction, to make sure our lives are sound, they're healthy, they're peaceful, and that we're practicing these principles for ourselves, knowing that this redounds to the benefit of the whole world, even the whole cosmos. Right? Very important point. And then at the same time, what we've been talking about also is that if we do all of that with the intention of helping everybody else, then it actually speeds up the rate at which we are helped, because our intention is to lift everybody up, right? So there's this reinforcing quality back and forth. And it's very different from more old school approaches, which say sacrifice yourself. There's some kind of, if you allow some kind of damage to be done to yourself, that somehow is redemptive because it follows Christ's example of suffering on the cross for other people. And I think the Course is really, really concerned to disabuse us of that, that there's no inherent value in suffering.
I think the best example of that is I have a couple friends who became mothers recently, and my favorite example of that principle is you really can't be the best mom you can be if you're not happy. You have to take care of yourself. A good mom is a happy mom. And so that's just one of the most evident things, because you think, okay, no, a good mom is running to soccer practice and not getting enough sleep and having dark circles under your eyes. And you can't be your best if that's the condition that you're in. So you don't have to be a mom to apply that to your own life. A good person is a happy person, and that does a lot of good in the world.
Peaceful CEO leads to a peaceful company, right? Peaceful supervisor. Absolutely. Peaceful worker bee, whatever it is. I mean, it's an excellent ongoing application of what we're talking about. And thank you for mentioning your professor too. A couple ticks back. It's good to hear that liberating, kind of mellowing influence in what can be a very, very intense, competitive college environment. So, well, good. I'm glad that we have opened this up a little bit more. It's the kind of thing that is, it's like trying to wrestle a whale into a little dinghy. It's a huge topic. It's got many different sides to it. And that's one of the main reasons that I started taking these themes and spending a whole year on them at a time, right? Because you get to keep revisiting the theme from lots of different angles over and over again. And then we can begin to see sort of how big the dimensions are to this idea of forgiveness. And thank you for helping us work through this particular emphasis on forgiveness, which is that when we forgive or when we heal, we don't do it alone. We do it in connection with Source. We do it in connection with our best self, and we do it in connection with everybody else's best self. Great. Any final words? And then I guess we're finished for today.
I really like when there's a call to action.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Let's look at that. Yeah, sure. There is a call to action, 137.13, right? It says, we will remember as the hour strikes. Our function is to let our minds be healed, that we may carry healing to the world, exchanging curse for blessing, pain for joy, and separation for the peace of God. So that's a great specific call to action, or the practice part of this lesson. And then it says in 137:15, let healing be through you this very day, and as you rest in quiet, be prepared to give as you receive, to hold but what you give, and to receive the word of God to take the place of all the foolish thoughts that were ever imagined. Now we come together to make well all that was sick and offer blessing where there was attack. Nor will we let this function be forgotten as every hour of the day slips by, remembering our purpose with this thought. So the practice is really to tune in at the top of the hour, every hour through the day, that we are in the business of healing ourselves so that the whole human enterprise can be healed. And that as we do that, it comes back to us accelerating our healing. So it's sort of like an hourly practice. This lesson is calling to. Great call on your part to check out what the call to action is. So back to you, Brittany.
Yeah, I love when the Course gives us a call to action directly, something that we can take away and think about as we go through the rest of the month and wait for the next call to action next month. But yeah, thank you for sharing that with us, Dave. And I guess the Course wants us to know that our purpose is to continue seeking healing so that we can send that healing on to other people. That's what I get out of it. And then we won't be alone.
That's exactly right. And the healing is the same as forgiveness. The two are interchangeable. Yeah. Yes. Excellent. Thank you. You really helped to break this down and keep us on track in this show today, Brittany. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And thanks for shedding all your wisdom and light on this lesson. Yeah, it wasn't self-explanatory from the get-go, but at least not for me. But maybe someone else reading it would be like, oh, no, that makes perfect sense.
Typically, in my experience, that's not the case. Most people come to it and I've had people say to me, they throw the book against the wall. Like, they're like, what is this? I'm just too frustrated with this. They get upset, so that's more. I mean, I would say probably maybe 1 or 2 in 100. I didn't understand. I've had to study it. I had to chew on it. So I'm glad that I can help to make it more clear and more plain. I think the vast majority of people who come to it are like, it's mystifying,
Well, thank you for clarifying that. And I think I want to continue studying. I think I want to go through all the lessons. I haven't ever set aside time to do that. But now that I'm seeing how much there is to learn and how many different elements and perspectives on these topics there are, I think I should go in from start to finish 1 year and just knock them all out. That'd be nice.
Wow, that would be interesting. Yeah, I think that would add a whole nother aspect to our show. And I mean, it would be interesting to, again, not to meddle with your own personal experience of what you're doing, but it would be an interesting thing to see if you do it, what the journey is like. We could always incorporate that. Where are you with your journey? What's it feel like? And and that might encourage other people if they decide to do the year-long journey. A lot of people do it in sync, but I think the way you're talking about it wouldn't have to be in sync. It would be the kind of thing that, it's just people join. And if they're interested in your snippets of how you're doing it, we'll encourage them if they're considering it. So good point. Again, no pressure from me to actually do that, but I like the idea.
Yeah, it would be interesting to also document it, because even according to this lesson, when you are healed, you're not healed alone, and sharing that healing with other people, making it communal, opening it up. and giving my take on it. I'm getting used to that now in these episodes, commentating on the text, so it would come naturally. So yeah, maybe I'll get around to doing that times 365.
Right. That's good. Well, very inspiring to hear what you're saying, and I love the idea. So we'll see. We'll see what the coming months bring. It makes it exciting to anticipate. Yeah, good.
Well, thanks for joining me this month, and I look forward to our next conversation next month. And I will see you there. And thanks to our audience. We'll see you all next month.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you to everybody who tuned in or will watch this at a later time. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Looking forward to next month as well. Bye, Brittany.
Bye.